Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are wrestling with, I think, one of the biggest challenges for any leader.
Mm,
How do you lead effectively when, everything feels unstable
right.
and we are not here for like motivational fluff or generic advice. We are diving deep into a structure, a full framework designed to help leaders navigate real turbulence.
That's right. Our source material is it's a comprehensive guide. It's
Hmm.
built not just on theory, but on a whole toolkit of reflective exercises
Hmm.
and actionable points.
Okay.
It recognizes that in chaos, you can't just rely on ad hoc responses. You need architecture.
And architecture, I like that.
Yeah. The ultimate goal, as the authors put it, is to help you build a lifetime framework for strength.
And our mission, as always, is to shortcut that learning curve for you. We're extracting the absolute most insightful questions, the most concrete, usable exercises from this framework. These are the nuggets you can apply immediately to whatever storm you happen to be facing, right now.
And it's important to set the context here. This framework, it emphasizes that enduring leadership requires structure, not just raw willpower.
Because that runs out.
Turbulence drains willpower so quickly. So by weaving together concepts like emotional intelligence, adaptive strategy, and personal care into a repeatable system, the framework aims to make resilience, well, almost automatic, rather than this exhausting effort.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The framework starts by tackling the foundational barrier, which, surprisingly, isn't the crisis itself.
Right.
It suggests the greatest threat is actually our interpretation of the crisis.
That's a fundamentally different starting point than most leadership guides, isn't it? It opens with a really provocative statement.
What's that?
What if the greatest threat to your leadership isn't the storm you're facing, but your interpretation of it?
Wow.
I mean, if you view the crisis as purely an external attack, you become purely reactive. But if you see it as a diagnostic opportunity, you become
Yeah.
strategic.
That reframing is absolutely key. It's so easy for us, as high-achieving people, to let external pressure dictate our internal posture.
Of course.
We feel attacked, so we get defensive or paralyzed. But if you focus on interpretation, then suddenly failure isn't a dead end.
Exactly. We have to challenge the limiting belief that failure is something to be hidden.
Or avoid it at all costs.
Right. The authors suggest treating setbacks not as embarrassments, but as essential diagnostic tools.
So, what is this failure telling me?
Yes. What is this failure telling you about your preparation, your strategy, or your team's alignment? Once you treat a setback like a piece of data, rather than a personal indictment, you can immediately start to learn and adapt.
I think that shift from, self-recrimination to diagnostic thinking, that is where the real growth happens.
That has to be.
If you're not failing, you're probably not pushing the boundaries of what your organization needs right now.
And to really underscore the power of this kind of internal reframing, the framework introduces a profound historical example. They talk about reframing prisons into opportunity, using the extreme scenario of the Apostle Paul's imprisonment.
Okay, and this isn't about religion, it's about radical constraint, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the ultimate limitation being physically locked down.
Precisely. And the question the framework poses is, what does this example reveal about the fundamental difference between outward limitation and inner freedom?
Okay.
Paul was constrained physically, yet this period produced some of the most influential writing in history. For a modern leader, it begs the question, how much of your current perceived limitation is external and how much is internal?
A self-imposed barrier.
A self-imposed barrier based on how you've defined your mission.
So if your mission is just to hit a specific revenue number, that limitation feels crushing. But if your mission is to, say, communicate a specific value, well, you can achieve that anywhere.
That's the idea. It changes your motivation entirely. And to make this actionable, the framework offers a very concrete exercise. They call it the Reframing Lab.
Tell us about the Reframing Lab. How does someone listening actually do this exercise?
Okay, so you select a current pressing challenge.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a budget cut or losing a key client.
Something real.
Something very real. Then you rewrite it 3 separate ways. First, as a simple obstacle. We lost X client.
Straightforward.
Second, as an opportunity. Losing X client frees up resources to chase a higher margin opportunity. Why?
Okay, and what's the third way?
The third is the most transformative. Rewriting it as a divine assignment. Now, this isn't necessarily spiritual terminology. It just means connecting the challenge to your deepest purpose or organizational calling.
I see.
So instead of just surviving the client loss, the assignment becomes something like, this event is forcing us to rigorously define our core value proposition, ensuring we only partner with organizations who truly align with our mission.
Wow, that framing just shifts your energy from resentment to, well, to purpose.
Completely.
That transition from simple obstacle to purposeful assignment is incredibly powerful. But, a lot of leaders equate strengths with not bending. So if interpretation is the core shift, where does that new flexible interpretation run into conflict with our old habits of, command and control?
It runs right into conflict with rigidity.
Yeah.
If we accept the premise that resilience is not the same thing as invulnerability,
Oh, it isn't.
then every leader has to ask themselves, what parts of my leadership identity have I been trying too hard to protect? We confuse strength with being unmoving.
That rigidity check is so necessary. We assume that, sticking to our guns demonstrates conviction, but the framework suggests we have to identify which long-held assumptions about leadership are actually just forms of rigidity disguised as strength.
Yes. Maybe it's insisting on a specific reporting chain or refusing to entertain outside ideas because we've always done it this way.
That's a killer phrase.
Rigidity is fatal in a turbulent environment. If you hold on to assumptions that no longer serve the current reality, you slow down, you alienate your team, and you cost your organization vital adaptive capacity.
But wait, I can hear a leader under immense pressure thinking, pausing to allow others to pivot sounds like a luxury. How quickly can this flexibility challenge actually be applied?
That's a fair point. And the framework acknowledges this isn't easy, but it argues the cost of rigidity is way higher than the discomfort of pausing.
So what's the exercise?
Practical exercise is simple. Select one decision this week where you would normally insist on your preferred method. Then before you execute, just stop
Pause.
and ask two specific questions. What's the adaptive choice here? And critically, what is the least comfortable choice that might yield the greatest future benefit? You consciously allow yourself to pivot, even if it feels inefficient in the moment.
That's a mental muscle leaders need to build. Now, here's where it all connects, because the backbone of that adaptive capacity, the ability to pivot, that's
Right.
emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. Emotional intelligence is the fuel for flexibility. The framework asks leaders to examine what emotions they're actively suppressing,
Why?
because they fear showing them will make them seem less of a leader. Is it doubt? Is it fear? Is it even excitement or compassion?
So many leaders believe they have to be the immovable rock, devoid of anxiety. But that suppression of natural human emotions is exactly what leads to rigidity and ultimately burnout.
Your team can't connect with a mask.
Right.
And EQ isn't just about regulating yourself. It's about regulating the atmosphere of the team. We often default to leadership by expertise,
Sure, when a crisis hits, we want the smartest person in the room to fix the technical problem.
but the framework emphasizes shifting from expertise to empathy.
So how does that play out in practice?
Well, they ask a crucial question. When was the last time empathy, not expertise, made you a more effective leader?
That's a great question.
In a crisis, people are disoriented. They need connection and psychological safety often more than they need immediate technical direction. Showing empathy first builds the trust that allows them to absorb your expertise later.
And to help leaders audit where they stand on this, the framework provides the EQ self-scan. This is a great tool for anyone listening.
It is. It prompts you to self-rate across 4 critical dimensions.
What are they?
First, self-awareness, how well you recognize your own emotions and triggers. Then, self-regulation, how you manage those emotions.
Okay.
Third is empathy, how you perceive and relate to others' emotions. And finally, relational health, how effectively you manage long-term relationships and conflicts.
And just identifying which of those 4 is your weakest point.
It gives you an immediate, targeted improvement goal.
Let's shift gears a bit and talk about sustainability, because leading through turbulence isn't a sprint, it's a marathon.
Absolutely.
We need to apply these principles not just to strategy, but to the leader's own system for self-protection, because burnout is the ultimate enemy of resilience.
The framework makes a really strong distinction here. Leaders must learn to discern between necessary sacrifice and self-destructive overwork.
That's a fine line.
It is, they ask. What core belief causes you to continually push past your physical or mental limits, and how is that belief actually failing your mission? Often, it's a belief rooted in indispensability. If I don't do it, it won't get done.
And the cost is massive. personally and for the organization. They push the leader to take a clear inventory.
Yeah, what rhythms of rest, renewal, and reflection are currently missing from your leadership life? And what is the measurable cost of missing them? We ignore the warning signs until the system completely crashes.
So to correct this, they detailed the energy management system exercise. This one is highly practical.
It is. The leader is asked to design one full day around sustainable energy, not just cramming everything in.
Okay, so what does that day include?
That day has to purposefully include one moment of spiritual renewal, which could be meditation, reading, contemplation, whatever works for you. One moment of emotional rest, like a non-work conversation with a loved one.
It's important.
A strict boundary around work hours, and one physical activity.
The genius of that exercise is its follow-up, though. The ultimate goal is to define which single element of that restorative day can become a daily non-negotiable habit.
Exactly. You might not be able to take the full day every week, but you can commit to the 30 minutes of physical activity or that strict end-of-day boundary.
It creates a protective system, replacing the vague hope for rest with a concrete mandatory structure.
It really does.
Now, let's shift that systemic approach to the organization itself. How does a leader build a resilient team without sacrificing performance? This brings us back to that classic leadership paradox. Psychological safety versus accountability.
That is the core challenge. The question is, how do you build psychological safety without lowering accountability? Framework insists these two concepts must coexist. Psychological safety allows people to admit failure and take risks, which is vital for adaptation. Accountability ensures that those admissions and risks lead to defined, measurable improvements.
Okay, so if you remove one.
If you remove safety, you get secrecy. If you remove accountability, you get stagnation. The resilient leader has to manage the tension between them, ensuring failures are reported immediately, but penalized only if no learning occurs.
Finally, for the knowledge-seeking leader who thrives on organization and clarity, we need to highlight the specific structure the framework provides for managing the sheer influx of work during chaos.
The actionable to-do list system.
Yes.
And this system moves well beyond just a simple list of tasks. It's a cognitive management process designed to free up mental bandwidth.
How does it work?
Step 1 is capture and clarify. You offload absolutely everything, every task, every fleeting idea, every unresolved decision out of your head and onto paper or a digital tool. Mental clutter is the enemy of focus.
And step 2 is define next actions. This is where vague intention meets concrete reality.
Right. You have to transition every item from a conceptual idea like, think about marketing strategy, to a concrete physical action verb. Draft 3 subject lines for the marketing email, or call X stakeholder about the strategy, or schedule 15 minutes to review Y report. If you can't define the next immediate physical step, the item isn't ready for your to-do list.
And then there's a third step for advanced reflection.
Yes, and for true resilience, they provide the priority filter. Before you commit to taking on any new task, or even executing a task you've defined, you must run it through 3 filtering questions.
What are those 3 filters?
First, does this align with my core mission? If not, why are you doing it? Second, what's the cost of delay or inaction? This forces you to distinguish between urgent and important.
And the third one?
And third, and this is the most important for burnout prevention, could it be simplified, delegated, or eliminated? That filter is the ultimate resilience tool for preventing unnecessary commitments from ever hitting your plate.
It's a gatekeeper.
A very effective one. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Resilience isn't merely surviving the next crisis. It is the deliberate application of structured reflection, whether it's personal or organizational.
So it's about making sure that pressure builds something positive.
It ensures that pressure builds strength and clarity, rather than simply accumulated stress and exhaustion.
Yeah.
It's about building an architecture that can withstand the inevitable external forces.
Absolutely. The final critical step the framework encourages is implementation. So we urge you to implement the 30-90-day resilience roadmap. Choose 3 core principles from today's dive. Maybe it's reframing failure, building your flexibility muscle, and implementing your energy management system, non-negotiable.
And define clear habits.
Clear habits, measurable outcomes, and crucially, identify support resources to hold you accountable to those new systems.
You cannot build this framework for strength and isolation. A structure requires supports.
As you embark on that roadmap and define the leader you are building toward, here is one final thought to mull over, drawing directly from the source material on leadership legacy.
I like this one.
When future leaders look back at your life, what will they learn from the way you handled pressure?